It looks like this. So like that's the setup. So you see like the fire kind of like goes in.
Propane?
Yeah, all propane. Yep. Just oh man.
Good
It was
stuff.
incredible. Yeah, well, and now like I've learned that you can get really crazy with dough. And then I'm reading about like a sourdough starter. Like there's people who I've never heard of this concept before. I'm like I like just
You made
waking
it
up.
through COVID without learning what a
How did you
sourdough starter?
Well, like I know I love sourdough, but I was like, wait, you mean I can
Mine's
do
dead.
this in my house? So I got a sourdough starter going. Oh my gosh.
It's so hard to
I'll have
keep
to
it.
bring it back alive.
I guess it's not that hard, you just have to stay up with it. You really have to.
I don't know. It sounds like I'm
do it, but I
gonna
still need to
be.
ask
learn
if
what it
really
was.
good.
Oh jeez,
Really
that
good.
would be nerve-wracking.
I got some friends that still stay on
Well, I
top
got a
of it, it's
bread
crazy.
maker. I'm borrowing a bread.
I don't know if I can.
They're
I
up
might
at
put some
the-
burn on, but the last
making
time I was
some
able to
really
beat
good
it.
bread.
with
Like
like
everything.
Nobody uses like I don't have a bread maker. I borrowed
It's
a
just
bread
not
maker.
expensive
Yeah.
enough.
Do you have a bread maker?
Bubbles. and-
Think, gosh, I should probably do this on my own to save money.
But not like the
Fun stuff.
machine
No.
that needs
There's
to
actually
make
the
it.
mic.
You're like, that's for the amateurs.
No, it's not.
That's a-
Oh,
I was talking to a friend of mine. He's like, these are my bread makers. Okay.
He lost his, so then I cut mine and gave him.
So I always got, well, I just got to hear how miserable it was when I had to go work for the family.
Did you? Yeah.
I mean, the guy that works for Ellison's.
You have to.
Anybody
I've
that
been
does,
thinking like I want to make the
any
same.
baking,
I don't know if you've heard of
they're
Chicago
like
Pizza and
3
Oven
in the morning.
Grinder.
Oh, yeah.
And they do like a
I like those
flatbread
Ellison
there.
bagels. I wish I could
my
recreate
God.
that cheddar herb bagel down.
All right, it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise, say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kelly, would you call the roll?
Michael DeVito,
Here.
James Shiloh, Christian Koppel,
Here.
Beth Marie Evans. Here. Alex Grados. Eric Jones.
Present.
A quorum is present.
All right, so first item on the agenda, 1.04, approval of the new board member. So Alan, if you wouldn't mind. Sure. We'll get this underway. You've got a script to read, so, and then I can knight you.
Sure.
right.
All right. I, Alan Zantut, do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Sycamore Community School Unit School District 427 in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, the laws of the State of Illinois, to the best of my ability. I further affirm that I shall respect taxpayers' interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets. I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek hearing before the board while respecting the privacy of students and employees. I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting. I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels. As part of the Board of Education, I shall accept the responsibility for my role in equitable and quality education for every student in the school district. I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course of the Sycamore Community School Unit District 427. I shall assist in establishing a structure and environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework. I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement in all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law. I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students of our community schools to advance the vision of Sycamore Community Unit School District 427, and I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district toward fulfilling the vision the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve Alan Zantut as the board member to fill the board vacancy, which expires in April of 2025?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Alan, grab a seat. Okay.
Name tag
Next.
on demand.
on the agenda is the consent agenda. So, on the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve the minutes of regular meeting, August 27th, 2024, minutes of executive session, August 27th, 2024, bills payable, financial reports, personnel report, school library grant application, and the resolution directing the superintendent to prepare the budget, as well as the administrator and teacher compensation report, request for early graduation, approval of graduation date, and Illinois High School Theater Festival field trip.
So moved, Jones.
Seconded, Cop.
I would like to pull the 2-04 financial reports.
Okay, 2-04 financial reports. Is it okay with the board if we place it directly after audience to visitors? Okay, so then, the new consent agenda, so there's a motion and a second, but we've had a request to pull after the motion and the second. Test my Roberts rules here. We're gonna go ahead and pull it, because anybody can, per board policy and per Roberts rules, pull an item from consent without a motion and a second. And then I'll ask the board cast a new motion and second for the revised consent agenda, which should encompass minutes of regular meeting, August 27th, minutes of executive session, August 27th, bills payable, personnel report, school library grant application, resolution directing superintendent to prepare the budget, administrator and teacher compensation report, request for early graduation policy, approval of graduation date, Illinois High School Theater Festival field trip. This is a amendment to the original motion.
So moved as amended?
Moved as amended. Is there a second to the
Second.
amendment? There's a second to the amendment. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
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 Okay, so now the motion to approve the consent agenda as amended, which I will not reread unless requested. Is there a motion to approve the amended consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the consent agenda as amended is approved. Is there a motion to approve the NIA consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved? Is there a
Seconded.
Second. All right, any discussion? All in favor to approve the NIA consent agenda?
Aye.
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 Okay. All right, so now on to the public hearing. Let me pull this up. All right, so the Board of Education must hold a public hearing for the adoption of the budget. The purpose of this hearing is to take written or verbal testimony from anyone wishing to speak to the district regarding the fiscal year 25 District 427 budget. Is there anyone at this time who would like to present written or verbal testimony regarding the budget? Seeing that there is no written or verbal submissions, I'm now going to close the hearing for the fiscal year 25 District 427 budget. All right, so the next item on the agenda is audience to visitors. If you wish to address the board this evening, please raise your hand at this time, and when called upon, kindly state your name, your address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please refrain from mentioning specific names during your remarks. In accordance with the Illinois Open Meetings Act, or OMA, the board cannot engage in deliberative discussion or take immediate action on items not listed on this agenda. However, we want to assure you that your comments are important to us and they will be taken into consideration. Thank you for your understanding. At this time, would anyone like to address the board? Would you please step forward and state your name and your address, sir?
My name is Greg Ocasio. My address is 614 DeKalb Avenue.
Thanks, Craig. Would you like to address the board at this
Address the board now.
Oh, yep, sorry.
Very good. Okay. Good evening. As you heard, my name is Greg Ocasio. I am the father of John Ocasio, one of 5 Spartans to compete in the IHSA state tennis tournament this past May. I am also a volunteer coordinator for the Kishwaukee Tennis Association. In the fall of 2020, John sent an email to an athletic director asking about a boys tennis team and to work out a co-op agreement with DeKalb High School. This athletic director never answered that email. But we were so happy when the boys team was formed during his junior year. In 2 seasons of attending matches, I never saw this athletic director courtside. In my capacity as a volunteer coordinator for the Kishwaukee Tennis Association, I arranged with this athletic director to host a tennis tournament at Sycamore High School. We secured a date in early August and sent out publicity. On September 3rd, I sent an email to this person asking about the availability of bathrooms. This person answered on the 5th, directing me to an assistant athletic director about a rental contract. I filled out the form, ticket number 2546, and got a quote of $76 for access to the fieldhouse bathrooms. A different assistant athletic director responded with thanks. I replied, agreeing to the fee, and then this person responded with thanks. I thought I'd done everything possible to secure bathrooms for my event. Unfortunately, the bathrooms were not open. Players and fans took it in stride and arranged shuttles to Taco Bell and Culver's to remedy the situation. On Monday, September 9th, I got an email from this assistant athletic director saying that they didn't hear from me by the end of the business day on Friday, so they were unable to secure a custodian for the event. Fair enough. This was a last-minute effort, and mistakes happen. I sent an email detailing these experiences to the athletic director, to the assistant athletic director, to that other assistant person, the superintendent, and the school board president. Within the hour, I got a reply from the school board president. No one else has replied. I asked some questions in that email that I hope can be answered tonight or at some other time. If bathrooms cannot be secured in time, why wasn't I contacted? This assistant athletic director called me on Friday, the Friday before the event. She did have my number. If a request form needs to be filled out 10 days beforehand, why wasn't I told this when the athletic director and I agreed to a date in early August? And why did this athletic director take 2 days to respond to my email on September 3rd? I have some easy solutions. I'm not sure if I haven't explored every aspect of your websites, but an FAQ or sending a link to an FAQ and all the pertinent links would have helped me a lot in my process. It was my first time as a volunteer coordinator for this event, my first time hosting a tournament. I'm sure I didn't act in maybe as a timely manner as I could. It was my first time doing it. Mistakes could have been made, but my whole process with this was not very pleasant, and as a result, unfortunately, future tennis tournaments will not be hosted in Sycamore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lucchese. Is there anyone else from the audience who would like to address the board at this time? Seeing no one further, we'll move on to the next item of the agenda, the superintendent's report.
No,
Oh, did I?
amended agenda.
Oh, yes, thank you. Amended agenda. All right, so for individual consideration before we get to the superintendent's report is the item pulled from consent, which was financial reports. Is there a motion to approve the financial reports as proposed?
So moved.
Moved?
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion at this time about the item related to financial reports?
So it's just more of a question for the board regarding the email that Michael sent out last week. It seems that there's still going to be some report work that needs to be done. And I was wondering if the board would prefer if Michael and I form that ad hoc committee or continue to meet there and bring recommendations back, or if there's any future report change recommendations, we discuss those at a whole board level. And the financial reports, just one example of something that per that email might need changes in the future.
Is there any other comment? So related to approving or denying the financial reports, is there any comment since you made the motion or since Eric made the motion to affirm the approval of the financial reports that you want to make in discussion? Okay, so there's no comment. Does anyone want to make any comment addressing Alex's point regarding the financial report?
No, I just didn't know that we'd stopped work on that. I knew that you guys had worked together on coming up with some recommendations, so I just assumed that was still a motion, but I still support revising these reports in whatever way is going to best serve the district and the board.
Okay, so Eric to the affirmative of revising the financial reports, but now is there anyone who would like to counter having the financial report approved? Is there any discussion related to that? No? Okay, so
I mean,
there's
per your recent email, it looked like there was some stuff we're looking into as far as board policy and state statute that may need to be incorporated into this report or be presented in other reports. So it sounds like this work is in progress to come up with solutions. Okay,
So-
is that not what you're looking for?
Yeah, so is it okay if Michael and I work on that, or does the whole board want to be a part of that process? And then with this report, since it might not comply with everything Michael has.
Alex, could you be more specific about the financial report and like what specific consensus you're looking from the board for on this motion, just like related specifically to the financial report?
I guess the approval, should we approve this since it doesn't have everything that we might need or not?
Okay.
That's basically what it boils down to.
Is there any other comment on Alex's comment? Okay, seeing no further discussion, there's a motion and a second. Thank you, Alex, for those comments. All in favor of approving the financial report?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. All right. Moving on to the superintendent reports. Steve?
Just as a kind of a change to the process of board meetings, informational items like both of these, the 6-day enrollment as well as the building and department updates are going to be provided in writing in advance of the meeting. So I'm not going to go over them during the meeting. You guys have the opportunity to view them ahead of time. If you have questions, please let me know. Kudos to the building principals. EC5 team worked on one together, or K5 team worked on one together. Middle school team put a report together, high school team put together a report. And actually this month, Dr. Valentine, our instructional technology director, put a report together, especially highlighting the new technology strategic plan. So I don't have a presentation prepared, but if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
So we will be getting those monthly, are they going to be written up monthly before each meeting? Like
So-
we received this time? I thought it was really nice.
Yeah,
I
the
like
building reports will be done monthly, and then departmental reports like the tech report will be provided as needed when there's changes, anything that's relevant. Then directors will take care of that, but the building reports, you guys will get those every month.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Seeing no further comments, we'll move to board reports.
So we're not getting a presentation on the technology
No,
section?
no.
Okay. The notes had just said that that Dr. Valentine will present,
Oh, yeah, I thought she was going. Is she here?
She is.
or will
No,
share
so-
a digital update.
Yep, the
Oh,
digital
the
update.
digital
So I thought the
Yeah.
will
The technology.
is coming.
Gotcha.
So the digital
Yeah,
update
okay.
was what we got?
Yeah,
Got
yes.
it.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. So on the board reports section, again, a little different from what we've done in the past, so pardon the dust. At this point, we have several reports that the board has routinely received. The FOIA report and the suspension report. Those don't require approvals at this point. And at this time, if anybody from the board would like to address the board as a whole about future agenda requests, comments, things you've done in public, or things that you feel the board as a whole should know about, this would be a great time to do that and report that. So, is there anything that anybody would like to report on?
Oh, so this would be like committee reports?
This could be
Falls in here.
for our currently 2 committees, yep. Or it could be.
Or appointees.
Or appointees.
So there was a planning and zoning commission meeting a couple of weeks ago, up for recommendation or consideration was a workshop item related to the multifamily housing project that's been proposed that would go in behind Farm and Fleet there. On that road, there's currently an empty lot kind of behind Walgreens, that street. We'd been brought that item before for consideration. Help me here, what street is that?
I don't know the street name.
Um,
I can look at it.
Doesn't it start with a B? It's not board. I want to say board. It's not board.
No, it's not. But anyway, we looked at the designs for that. It's I think it was pretty attractive. They talked about the density. It's going to be slightly lower density, I think, than the townhome, or at least comparable to the townhome behind it. And I think we were there to recommend changing that from commercial use to multifamily residential, which had, again, we talked about it several months ago, and they just brought some revised plans together, but it's still the Planning and Zoning Commission was pretty unanimous in recommending that we support, that the city council make that change to allow that project to go forward.
And that's gonna go right beside Fox Point? Fox Point?
Yeah, off of Hathaway Drive. I think.
Yes, we have the way there.
And it's all ages, not senior? Okay,
Yes.
Potentially families.
okay, so there is potential.
Yeah, they were looking for like a $350,000 starting price, looking to put some foliage in to try and reduce the amount of exposure for those buildings having to look out on the Farm and Fleet lot there.
1 to 3 bedroom, I think.
Yeah. But I think that was all.
All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll move on to the first item of old business, which is coming up for second reading, which is item 8.01, approval of policy revisions, second reading, which encompasses several recommended changes. At this point, the recommended action is to approve the policy revisions as presented. Steve, I believe you had a few comments on this?
I do. So you'll notice that policy revisions, approval of policy revisions come in kind of 3 chunks. The first one, and they'll need to be voted on separately. So the first chunk of policy revisions, it's coming up for second reading, is pretty well comprised of press policy update issue number 115. Those are vetted by attorneys, counsel at School Board Association. I've reviewed them. They're pretty straightforward. Most of them are 5-year reviews. These are pretty straightforward, right? Policy revisions 2150 and 2240 all have to do with Board Policy Committee. You guys may remember that in July there was a conversation about delegating policy review and revisions to the superintendent. So in August, I reviewed, well, in between July and August, I reviewed policies 220, 2150, and 2240 because they all had language related to Board Policy Committee or board policy updates. 220 didn't have any language that I felt needed to be revised. You guys had a chance to look at that previously. 2150 and 2240 both have language that specifically identifies the Board Policy Committee. Based on board discussion in July and our previous discussion in August, my recommendation is the same, to modify both of those policies to remove the Board Policy Committee. However, in between then and tonight, we've gotten some additional legal guidance that, if I remember correctly, and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, the legal guidance is that the board can still delegate that to the superintendent. Doesn't need to, it's not required to have a Board Policy Committee, but there are reasons that the board might want to have a Board Policy Committee. So if the board, this is the confusing part when it comes to item 8.02, if the board wants to retain the Board Policy Committee, you should vote no on my recommendation, which really is just based on the conversation, the discussion that the board had back in July prior to getting that legal guidance. Board policy, actually I think 8.02 should be 220, and 2240 shows up in 8.03. I believe that's the one that Mr. Grados made a proposal to. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Updated, his recommendation was that that policy be updated so that any board member could put an item on the agenda at any time. Currently, any board member can suggest an agenda item, but the board president has the final decision on constructing the board agenda. And policy 410 is the financial policy, if I remember correctly, and that was recommended by our auditors to make a change to that policy. So each of these has to be voted on separately, but I think it made sense to kind of explain all 4 of them at the same time. So I would suggest that maybe the board go through these one item at a time.
I'm only saying.
So thank you, Steve.
Sure.
So for item 8.01, so we can engage in deliberative discussion, is there a motion to approve the policy revisions second reading for the Press 115 update?
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
That's line item 8.01.
Exactly.
Yes.
Second.
Alan seconds. All right, so at this point, we can engage in discussion. Alex, you made the motion. Do you have any comments on 8.01?
No, it's just press, so it's standard procedures that are recommended by the subscription we adhere to, so I see no reason to reject any of these changes.
Does anybody want to speak to rejecting these changes? No. Seeing no discussion, there's a motion and a second. All in favor to approve policy revision second reading of the Press 115 update?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so 8.01 stands approved. All right, so item 8.02, arguably the more confusing of the policies. And this is a little flavor of when we get rid of our policy committee. So, okay, the second proposal, the recommended action, Steve had mentioned, is to approve the revisions to policies 2150 and 2240 as presented, so we can engage in deliberative discussion. Is there a motion to approve the revisions to policy 2150? Know this, that by motioning this does not mean you affirm to have this change. This just means we're going to engage in deliberative discussion. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Moved and seconded. Okay, Christian, having made the motion, would you like to speak to the affirmative of this or have any comment to this?
My only comment to this is, procedurally, if we get rid of the policy committee, Steve's kind of fronting all of this. He's taking on all this extra work, maybe work he's already doing as well, but he gets to consult with the attorneys as well, and then he prepares these revisions for us, and then we kind of step out of the initial process. Is that correct?
Mhm.
So I'm in favor of keeping the policy committee. I think it's important to maybe have the board have some more ownership over it, just have a member present to work with Steve on that. I do think there's a usefulness to that, but I'm open to discussion on any reason why we should remove the policy committee.
Is there any other discussion from board members related to keeping or getting rid of the policy committee?
I agree with Christian.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I'm very new, but it does seem like part of our responsibility, something that we should participate in.
Yeah, I would just say due to the quantity of potential policy review that we'll have to undergo, I feel we should keep it. Otherwise, there will be lengthy board meetings of policy discussion. As said, all the board members would need to be present, whereas if we keep the policy committee, there's a little more flexibility on if you want to attend, you can, because it would be an open meeting, that's my understanding. But you
So
don't
addressing
have
your
to.
question specifically, Alex, I'll take a moment to address some of the functions of the policy committee. It is subject to Open Meetings Act, which would mean that it would be publicly posted, 48 hours in advance agendas, minutes would be taken, anyone from the public could attend, and there has to be time for public comment. It would be appointed solely by the board president, and the appointees to that committee could be anybody. It should be at least one board member, and there should be a chairperson. It'd be my intention that I would not be the chairperson for that policy committee, and I would really like to see that if the board does decide to keep it, that another board member intend to chair it, and at least a second board member intend to be there in their absence. And I would say that it does open the door for opportunity to other non-board members sitting as members, and its purpose would be as advisory only, to make recommendations to the board and confer as needed with Steve and legal. So that's been my understanding of the way policy committee as a standing board committee can function. So with the board knowing this and understanding these things, are there any other comments?
My fear is just that it's a significant undertaking and obligation for the board members from a time standpoint, and while there may be excitement or volunteers in the current group, that doesn't mean that the next board that would be here in 6 months would share the same enthusiasm. I think it creates a pretty big burden. I know that Jim was probably more interested in sitting on that with his legal background than maybe other board. In fact, I'm not sure if any other board members were really during his time.
Steve was on when I got here, yeah.
Oh, Steve, yeah. You know, my concern just from an efficiency standpoint is that we know Mr. Wilder reviews all of these policies already, that IASB is reviewing all these policies already, so I don't see personally the added advantage of having one or more board members have to sit through that process and then have to sit through it again when it's presented to the bigger board and likely have to explain all the work that they did in addition to having to keep the minutes and everything else you just discussed. It seems like an unnecessary burden to me that I wouldn't want to leave a future board without knowing that there's a good value in having that done. And I guess nobody's presented the value to me yet to want to support that.
Is there any other comment from the board at this time?
A question, so if we were to strike the policy committee and a board member wanted to bring a policy change, how would that go?
As it stands revised, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, it would go to Steve.
So we'd have to present this to Steve and then he would bring it as a recommendation to the board?
Correct.
Now, if we kept
Steve, am I correct in that?
No, yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Okay, and if we kept the policy committee, is that the only way to bring forward policy changes? Or could Steve, for example? could
No, it is
policy
the
committee-
only way to
it's
bring
the
changes.
only
At
way
this
to bring-
point, our board policy stipulates that all policy revisions be brought forth through the policy committee first for review and then recommendation to the board as a whole.
In order for that to happen, an open meeting must occur.
Yes, correct. Any other comment?
So it'd be, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, we're talking about volunteers and the extra work that would be done for the board. I mean, I would volunteer for that if we kept it.
Wonderful. Is anyone else particularly interested in sitting on that committee?
I would be, I mean, I feel as if I've done a pretty decent amount of policy work already, so I
And
would be happy to continue.
anybody could be appointed by the board president, and again, anybody could attend. So even if not appointed, you could attend. So, any other comment?
I guess I would just ask, are these monthly meetings, or is this something done yearly, or?
The frequency could be determined entirely by the policy committee. So,
Okay.
Historically, has it been? when
it has
press
historically been
issues-
quarterly. Correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong, Steve, because it has been in alignment with when press releases their policy updates. So, yeah. Any other comments?
I guess I'm struggling to logistically understand how that works, because the big discussion we had months ago about getting rid of operating in the subcommittee method was the burden on not only the board members having to be present, run the meeting, take notes, publish those notes, et cetera, but then the burden as well on the administration, and how do you set those meeting times such that they can make it and it's not a disruption to their day. That hasn't been addressed as a part of the creation of this board policy committee.
So I'll address one piece on that. So we wouldn't be creating anything here, we would be not destroying it. So to affirm its existence, you would simply vote no to this recommended action. But at this point, you've asked a question about the burden to administration. Steve, do you want to address that question?
I review the policies anyway, so in terms of the review itself, scheduling the meeting, you know, we'd fit it into our day and have, you know, accommodate, you know, in this case, sounds like maybe Christian and Alex to make that happen. But like I told you guys in July, I review the policies anyway. I need to make sure that we implement them and that we're in compliance, you know, with the policy. So I'll look at them anyway.
Are there any other comments?
So it would be kind of like double work, it sounds like, too. I don't know if there's something in between where somebody can get together with you if they are interested, because Alex is really good at reading over all the policies, and he's caught quite a few errors. So that part of, you know, having the board more involved is good, like, it's two people looking at it instead of all the burden being on you.
Well, the board's still going to be involved. It would just be the whole board involved during the regular meetings, as opposed to some of the board involved outside the meeting, and then the whole board involved in maybe a smaller portion of that. But I guess that depends for a member who's not part of that subcommittee, it's how much detail do you want during the regular meeting?
Right.
Well, having minutes would be very valuable. Just speaking to that, being able to review those minutes would be a big piece. Is there any other comment before we host a vote or discussion?
I would just want to throw in my recommendation, even though my recommendation is to change the policies, it really was based on the board's discussion in July. So to speak, I don't have a dog in this hunt. So it's really, truly how the board prefers to operate. Typically, I don't like my recommendations to get voted down. This is a situation where it's really, my recommendation was the outgrowth of the board's discussion, just wanted to align with the board's discussion. So truthfully, like Michael said earlier, if you want to keep the policy committee, please vote no on my recommendation. If you'd like to get rid of and delegate that to the superintendent, me in this case, but another superintendent down the road, then please vote yes.
Seeing no further discussion, Alex, having made the motion, would you start the vote?
No. So that the vote is no.
Having made the second, Alan, would you make the,
No.
Beth? in
No.
sequential order?
No.
Yes.
No. All right, the policy committee lives to fight another day. All right, on to the next item of the agenda. Section 8.03, this is approval of board member proposed policy revisions. The recommended action is to approve the recommendation to not accept the proposed changes to policy 220, so we can engage in discussion on this. Is there a motion to not approve changes to the policy 220?
I motion to table this completely.
There's a motion to table this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor to table this item?
Aye.
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 All right, the item's been tabled to discretion of the chair. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 8.04, approval of the resolution regarding the fiscal year 25 district budget. At this time, the budget presentation has been made to the board in a PDF format, and the tentative budget was presented at the prior meeting for review. Is there any other comment from the administration regarding this? Seeing no comment, is there a motion to approve the resolution regarding the fiscal year 25 District 427 budget as presented?
So move, Jones?
Move. We have motion.
Seconded.
Seconded. Is there any discussion regarding the budget at this time? Seeing no discussion, I'm going to take a roll on this one. So Kelly, would you call a roll vote?
Jones?
Yes.
Santu?
Yes.
Poppel?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Grados?
Yes.
DeVito?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Seeing no new business, this meeting stands adjourned. Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks.